I just wanted to feel comfortable in any setting, scripts and canned lines and all that kind of stuff. Okay, cool, fine, but that's not solving the issue. What I realized is that like this is about me at the core. Like this isn't about what I'm doing. This is about who I am. If I'm going to get a real handle on this, I need to get a handle on who I am as an individual. To me, that's kind of the foundation of everything else in when we're talking about inner game.
Yeah.
You have to know who you are.
What is happening, folks? Welcome to another episode, Unfiltered Bachelor. I'm your Unfiltered Bachelor, Blake Money Blakeweather. Hi. How is everybody doing out in podcast land? I've missed y'all, but maybe if y'all have missed me, y'all should go tune into 9 Nerd Yards, where I'm with the crew and we're breaking down all type of movies and shows. We just broke down They Cloned Tyrone, which was absolutely amazing. And also, too, if you want to hear me just talk about something off the cuff that's not dating or movies, you can hear me talk about TV shows. I am talking with Kurt Hollabaugh, who is now a finalist on The Ultimate Fighter season 31. Y'all all know I love me some MMA. For those out there that have been following me since the beginning, I did an MMA podcast long before I did a dating and relationship podcast, and that just takes me back to my roots. So if y'all have missed me, go ahead and tune in on that. But in the meantime, tune in for this, because my guest today is somebody, we were just talking about it before the podcast. It's literally been like 3 months to try and make this happen, and I'm so glad that this is happening now. He just released a book. I'll have him tell you all about it, but my guest today is Dale Valor. Dale, how you doing, baby?
Man, I am fantastic. And I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen, bro. And we really could have made this happen a lot sooner, to be 100% honest.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have the book to plug. I just wanted to be done with that and then make the rounds. You know what I mean?
The man is your inner game wingman, and your book is called Inner Game, and it's a much longer title, but it's Inner Game, how to get a
handle on your dating life by fixing the relationship you have with you. Which is a mouthful, but I do think it summarizes it pretty well. But
absolutely,
I gotta call audible and go left for a second. I didn't know that you did a podcast in regards to like movies and TV shows and things like that too. Okay,
yes,
you got to get on. He's one of my students. All right.
Okay.
His name's Chris Derrick. All right. I'll make the connection if you want me to. But he's one of the writers on. He's on strike right now, so he's got time. Okay. But as a matter of fact, he did the cover of my book for me. So I guess
all right, nice,
relate, sort of. But he's one of the writers on Picard, and he's also a writer on The Equalizer on CBS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So he's one of my students. You know what I mean? Super dope guy. I just hung out with him in LA a few weeks ago when we were doing one of our modern flirting retreats. Yeah. And man, really good cat, man. Really good dude.
Yeah, let's connect the dots after the show. I'd love to have him on there, and I think that'd be a good platform and just break down what he does and
he has a podcast too. Well, who don't, right? But he has a podcast too of where it's all about screenplay writing and stuff like that.
Oh,
and things like that. So
interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well,
really good too, man.
Yeah. No, I'd love to. I think me and the crew would love to have a chance to speak with him. That'd be dope.
And another one of my students too is he's head of, and I don't know if this really speaks directly to your podcast. I'll let you figure that out, I suppose. But he's the head of animation at Disney. So
what?
Yeah,
that's dope.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. Let's have him on too. I'm sure, like, at least just whoever wants to talk about like animation or movies or whatever. Like, we're always down for that. We actually, funny enough, on that podcast, we had a guy who he does voice acting, he does animating, and he does voice acting for like cartoons and video games and stuff. And it was just a blast we didn't break down anything particular that he did. It was more of like an interview piece on like who is this guy? And like, what's his life been like? And like,
Yeah.
just things like that. And it was one of our favorite podcasts because there's
Mhm.
not really an agenda. It's more of like getting to know somebody
Yeah.
and just you finding out about their story. And then once you do that, it you have that connection. And if they ever have something to promote or whatever, that's great because now we have that connection, we have that bridge, and we have that, that platform to offer to be like, bro, come back on. Let's break down
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're working on. So yeah, I'd be again totally down for that. And I'm gonna make this connection because I think for me personally, doing podcasting has helped so much, and as long as I've done it, has helped so much. Let's rewind the clock a few years ago when I was really going on a lot of dates and doing dating, being in the dating space.
Yeah.
Um, and it really helps because you're having to compile thoughts and structure sentences, ask questions, but not just ask questions, but listen. Like
Yeah.
as a podcast host, you should be a good talker. You should
Yeah.
also be a great listener,
I
actually.
agree. 100%.
And
100%.
and that skill translates to dating. But what I think, first of all, let's go with the overarching theme. It helps with connecting with people. Like, I don't want to say just meeting people, because I've had people that I've met, and I'm sure that this has happened to you too before, because you teach methodology on it. You're writing, like when people say like I've written the book on this, but like you've written the book on this literally is it's
I've written
meeting
a book on this.
correction. But it's meeting people and then having that when you're talking with them. And I love this is they say like, I really don't tell people about this, but and you're
Right.
like, bro, let's go there,
Yeah.
and it's just it could be a normal dude, you know what I mean? You're just like,
Yep.
bro, how's your day? And before you know it, like he's telling you about his family and just like,
Yeah.
or telling you about like something that happened. He's like, so I'm just trying to make it through this. And like, you didn't anticipate to do that when you just walked up to him or met him, or if
Right.
it's a friend of a friend. I think meeting people, first of all, like that is a skill in and of itself.
Mhm.
And then it's a translatable skill when you're wanting to meet, somebody of the opposite sex, or somebody you're attracted to,
Right.
go on a date, or friend of a friend, fill in the blank of however way you meet somebody nowadays that you're
Yeah.
attracted to. But it's a translatable skill. You know what I mean, Dale?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Like you were talking about listening. Man, active listening is such a powerful
Mhm.
thing. A lot of
Mhm.
times people and we've all done this. I'm not suggesting that like I'm,
No,
I
no, we
don't
haven't.
do this.
No, we haven't.
Like,
No, we haven't. No, we haven't all done. No, I'm just kidding.
but you know how it goes. A lot of times people really, they're not even really, they're like half listening to what you're saying because they're thinking about what they're going to say next, as
Right.
opposed to being 100% focused on the person in front of them, what they're saying. And then now you got something to riff off of. Now you got something, you can bat around conversation and things like that based on the other person's experiences. Because look, you probably heard this as much as I have, where guys are like, oh, well, women are just kind of boring. Like they don't really have anything. They don't really talk about anything important or anything. Like, look, man, if you find people boring,
Bro, you got a
odds
bigger
are the
problem.
common denominator is you.
Is
It's
you.
not people are boring. You're boring. And look, everybody's got a story, man. Larry King, you know who Larry King is, right? I
Yeah,
assume.
yeah.
So, okay, Larry King. I was watching an interview with him.
Rest in
One
peace to the
time.
homie. Also,
What's that?
I said, rest in peace to the homie. He's dead, right? He
Yeah,
died.
yeah. He died.
Yeah, rest in peace to the
Okay.
homie.
I thought you said I was just hanging out with the with the homie.
With the homie. Oh yeah. No, you're like, what?
Really?
You hang out in cemeteries, huh? All right.
Yeah.
You're weird.
Okay. All right. Seance. Okay. All right. I get it. But one of the things that he said was, they were asking him like, well, what made you such a good interviewer? And his response was, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I just ask people questions of things that I want to know about.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's not overly complicated. It's not like I did, thousands of hours of background study on the person I'm about to interview. And I watch every interview and every piece of content that person has. And I'm going to pick it apart and I'm going to look for some gotcha moment. And his whole agenda was to go into it and just simply ask questions that he wants to know about that individual. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Not rocket science, not complicated at all.
No.
And what is he really finding out about people? He's finding out about their story. He's finding out who they are. He's finding out about probably bringing up things that they didn't go into that interview anticipating to talk about.
Right.
Probably 75% of it they are, because they're probably plugging something, much like I'm doing here. But there's going to be things that come in out of that are anticipated, and that's the golden moments right there when people are operating off script. That's where the magic happens, in my opinion.
I don't know. I'm a very visual person, and so when you were just talking about, this is going to be a good, I think, connection point. When you were just talking about people you're probably boring. I just thought of, and I don't know why I visualize this, but it's going to make a lot of sense. I just thought of a city, right?
Mhm.
Like, imagine a city, and it's a small city, and it only has like 3 roads,
Okay.
right? Then imagine another city, and it could still be the same size, but it has 10, 20 roads,
Okay.
right? 15, 30 roads. It has more.
Right.
That is like, again, I don't know why I got this visual, but it's like, that is like a person, right? Like, if you go into a person's space,
Mm-hmm.
and they only have 3 roads of in and out of where to go, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the three or 4 things that, like, they seem to know, seem to be their comfort zone, seem to want to talk about. And if you don't talk about those things, you're boring, because you're not talking about something. But when you go to a different city, there's 15 ways in and out to get somewhere. There's all these things to do and whatever. And it could still be the same size. But if you have more routes to go this way and that way, more connection points, it makes it a lot more. Just think about it. It's just, when you drive around a city, you're like, that's way more fascinating than just like 3 roads. A 3-road city, you want to go in and out, but a road, another city where you're trying to explore it, you're trying to drive this way and that way, it's a bit more of an adventure, and it's a bit more interesting. I don't know why that visual came up, but I think that is a figurative way to look at, like, people, or to look at when you're meeting people.
And and to your analogy, what are roads, really? I mean, if you really boil it down to its simplest concept, roads are freedom. It enables you to get from point A to point B.
Connection points, yeah.
It enables you to explore more, the more routes and streets and roads and avenues that, it enables you to go where you want to go, as opposed to where you can only go.
Right. Yeah. Facts.
So, yeah, I mean, like, in conversation, and I can't remember if I brought this up in the book or not, because it's not like a book on conversation per se. But one of the things that I hear guys talk about a lot, like a lot, is like, oh, well, I run out of things to say. I don't know what else to say. It's like, really? Like, how can you, like, literally run out of things to say? It's not even that you're running out of things to say. It's just that there's too much to say, and you don't know which way to go with it. So, like, if I walk in, say for instance, you live in Austin. All right. Yes. So I'm throwing a barbecue. Okay.
Let's go. Tell me when, bro. Let's go.
So I'm throwing this barbecue, and I'm like, Blake, come out to my barbecue. But could you do me a favor and stop at the grocery store and pick up some mustard? All right. I'm out of mustard. Can you do me that solid? And you're like, cool, Dale. I got you, man. Yeah. So you stop at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Now you walk down the little aisle with the condiments and whatever, and there's 50 different kinds of mustards. You got sodium free, you've got French's yellow, you got honey mustard, you got the full gambit, right?
Yeah.
Now you're looking at it and you're like, well, I don't know which one to get. Like, now next you're texting me, yo, which one should I get, right? Because you don't want to get the wrong one.
Right.
But same scenario, except you go to the condiment aisle and there's like literally 2 mustards. You're going to be like, good enough.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but that's what people do in conversation. They're like, I run out of things to say. No, you don't. You just don't know which one to pick, is what it is. Because how
Mhm.
is that even possible? Like, if you
Yeah.
are like, how old are you, Blake?
35.
35. At 35 years old, you've lived 35 years of life. You're telling me
Yes.
in that and obviously I'm not suggesting you, but
Yes.
but if somebody's 35 and they've lived 35 years of life, all that life experience, you're telling me after 5 minutes that you're running out of things to say?
Yeah.
And on top of that, what's going on around you, right? Like, I mean, I could start talking about the painting I see in the background. I could talk about the
Mhm.
lamp and the furniture, the little plant right there. You know what I mean? Your microphone.
Right.
There's all kinds of things to talk about.
It's yeah, that is man. Okay, there's so much to unpack there because that's such a great point. Abundance sometimes does lead to like paralysis in some sort of
Yeah,
sense, right? You're
paralysis
like,
by analysis.
yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
Man, I love that saying, and I did a whole little short video on it, analysis by paralysis, because I had somebody, I believe it was on episode 16, so this was a long time ago,
yeah.
um, and it was a buddy of mine and I'd heard it because I had I've trained kickboxing and boxing on and off since 2009, and
Mhm.
so that it's often talked about, right, in martial arts or boxing, whatever, like analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis. Sorry,
Mhm.
too much coffee right now, but paralysis by analysis, it's a real thing, right? You're freezing, you're trying to think about what they're going to throw, and
Mhm.
then you don't throw, and then they throw, and then you're getting in your head, but you're like, okay, I didn't throw twice, like I got hit twice, like do I need to cover? And you just psych
Yeah.
yourself out of
Yep.
the game, and like that does happen with people. I've long time ago, like I know that feeling, and
Mhm.
then as I reflect back, I'm like, no, I didn't know now what I know then, which is exactly your point. Like, no, just go to the cycle, 3 or 4 options, 2 options, just have the go-tos that
Yeah.
you go to for that aisle and then move on. Like,
Right.
you don't have to spend a whole bunch of time there, but then from there, you grab that item and then you're like, okay, I just need to go to a different aisle and pick something, to
Right.
use the grocery store analogy. And that is absolutely true. And I know people don't think about it in that way, in that method, in that sort of, that it's a dynamic in that way,
Yeah.
because the people that are good at it either run on autopilot and they don't think about having to break down. I think it was something in a long time ago. It was either in a mystery series or something, because you studied pickup a long time ago. We can
Yeah.
get into that, or the game or something. But it was something about like guys who are good with girls are like guys who are like people who flip a light switch on. They can't tell you
Mhm.
how the electricity flows, and they just know when they flip the light switch on, the lights turn on, and they
Right.
know how to do that. The
Yep.
people who are not good at it don't even know how to flip the light switch on,
Right.
and they need the engineering mindset to break that down and understand, when you flip this, the transistor it does a connection and
Right.
makes the circuit and turns the light bulb. Like, you have to break it down in that way for you to be like, I know how to turn it on.
Yeah.
And then it's tough because it's like there's not really like an in between. Either you know how to do it, you don't know how to do it. Um,
Right.
so before I go off too far of a tangent, yes, to your point, I think that is amazing that you sort of thought of it and broke it down in that way, because it's simplistic.
Yeah. And I mean, like, one of the things that I like to really talk about in terms of just interpersonal conversation. And by the way, this doesn't just apply to dating or getting out there and kicking it or anything
Right.
like that. I mean, this applies to any type of space where being charismatic is going to be a benefit to you. But I mean, I literally can't think of a space where it wouldn't be, but maybe there's one. I don't know. But the more that you can communicate with people and things like that. I mean, we're social animals, man. That's
Right.
that's what we're designed for. That's what separated us from, and like actual animals, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So, conversational threads, so like when I'm instructing
Yeah.
or teaching guys out of boot camp or in one of my classes or something like that, and some guys tend to be a little bit more introverted or a little bit more, gun shy when it just comes to just communication and things like that. And like, again, back to, I don't know what to say. I don't know. Like, what they'll do is they'll discuss the conversation that they know and run it right into the ground, because it's like, okay, we're talking about something I know about. Right. So I'm just going to keep doubling, tripling down on this because this is something I know about. But as soon as the conversation shifts to something else, it's like, I don't know anything about that,
Right. Yeah.
So, but conversational threads, like one of the examples I like to use, okay, is say you're talking to, okay, so you're in Austin, so you got University of Texas right there, okay?
Yes.
And so you're talking to a U of T girl, yeah, and like what can just on the strength of that she goes to the University of Texas, how many facets of conversation can you get out of that? I mean, there's academics, there's campus life, there's sports, there's
food around there.
What's that?
Food around campus. Like there's so many places that are there that are not around anywhere else.
There's a million things that like, and okay, so we start talking about sports, say. Okay, cool. We're talking about like, the Texas Oklahoma rivalry versus where I live, where it's Michigan Ohio State rivalry. Like which one's the bigger rivalry, and right?
Right. Yeah.
And as we're talking about that, now that you know that I'm from where I'm from, you'd be like, oh, that's crazy. You know what? My buddy, he just moved to Ann Arbor. Like, oh man, that's super cool. Because like in Ann Arbor, that not only is the University of Michigan there, but I mean, it's such a college town. Like, matter of fact, there's this one bar, right? And this one time I was up there. Now I'm going into a story. Right?
Yeah.
And so those threads, it's just a matter of pulling on one of those threads, seeing where it goes, almost kind of like a flow chart,
Yes. Yeah.
And
I love that you pointed that out, because it's a flow chart. It either goes to story of something that you know about, or like what you know, or informational tidbit, or the other thread is it goes to question, right? So like I've met people from, say, California, and I'm like, okay, here's what I know about California, but I need you to clarify, like, is it this way for real? Like, and even just in me saying that, I was thinking about this right before we got on, that it's not only what you say, it's the expression of how you say. I'm a very expressionate person.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know if that's a right word, expressionate, but I'm a very expressive person. That's right. We're sealing the deal right here. Unfiltered Bachelor.
What you're looking for.
But it's all in how you say the thing that you want to say. So I could easily say like, so is that how California is like? Or I could be like, okay, is that how California is like? Yeah. Right? Just the way, the tonality, the shifting. It's more fun when I say things in a more fun way, but that's also how I speak. I speak things. I'm like, wait a minute, like, it's a rhythm. There is a rhythm to the way that I say things, and and again, I'm going to attribute that back to that might have been the way I was before podcasting, and I'm sure that that's what was a helpful skill to start. But like that's only been what's the word I'm looking for? Something that makes something better. It's only refined that skill as I've done podcasting for so long and been able to translate that into social like dynamics. So I love that, right? Like the thread either goes this way and you have this, or this way and you have this. And you were laughing at something I said about California. What was it? What were you laughing about?
Oh, just like like just imagining like one of the questions that you might ask, do people really shit in the streets?
Right. Yeah. That could be a thing. I don't know. I need to know these things. Like these are things I need to know. Right.
Oh,
that would be the way I'd frame it.
Like, man. So I was out there. I go to LA for either a boot camp or something, seemingly every other month. But I was out there like, I don't know, 6 months ago, something like that. And I'm in Santa Monica. And me and one of my students were walking down the street, and I needed to get something from CVS, and we're walking up on the CVS, and there's like these cops there, and this lady like out in, like, how can I word this? So she's coming out of the entrance, and there's like kind of like a ramp, like what you might kind of think of as like maybe like a wheelchair ramp or something like that. And she's coming out, and the cops are like, they got gloves on. They're trying to like kind of corral her. and like she was a mess, dude, a mess. Like she
Mm.
didn't have any pants on.
Oh
She just
no.
like it smelled terrible,
Oh no.
like
Yeah.
horrible. She's like obviously out of her mind,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we go into the CVS, man, that whole place smelled like straight up like a sewer. Like just
Whoa.
she came in there and just started shitting everywhere and throwing poop.
Oh no.
Yeah. Like now I didn't see that part. That was the
Right.
aftermath. But I walked
W-
in like 2 minutes after the aftermath.
Whoa.
And
Yeah.
yeah, like the homeless problem there is unreal,
Whoa.
but is what it is. But that's why I was laughing, man, because that's
Yeah.
what
Because all right, Dal, I want to get into this real quick before we go to we could probably talk about social dynamics and the breakdown of everything.
yeah.
Let's circle back to that and let's go to the beginning, man. What
Circle back to okay, so we're walking down the street and I need to get something from CVS, right? Not like
I was like, wait, that's where we're going, huh? All right, let's see where this goes. What made you what got you to this path where you're now is it a dating coach? Is that the correct
yeah.
terminology?
Mhm. Yep.
What got you, like in the words of Deadpool, like you're probably wondering how I got here. Well, I'm probably wondering how you got here,
All
Dale.
right.
What start me from the beginning, man.
Okay, it's a crazy story. So
And you
uh
talk about it a little bit in the book too.
yeah, I touch on it, but it's not about the book isn't about me, so I don't
Right.
like really go super depthy into it.
Yeah.
So um so here's the deal, man. Like I didn't get into this space until I was in my 30s. All
Oh
right.
wow. Yeah.
And so what happened was previous to like in another life, we'll just say, I was a musician professionally, like I'm signed to a major label,
Oh
uh,
wow.
toured a lot and all that kind of stuff. And
Nice.
so I get done with that. And one thing that I really, really noticed was that I was really good at having conversation about things I knew about.
Okay.
But as soon as the conversation shifted, much like I was talking about earlier, if the conversation shifted, like, so if we're talking about hip hop, for example,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
okay, cool. Like all day I can talk about it. But
Yeah.
the conversation shifts to factory work.
You're like, bro,
Like I'm
bro,
like,
what?
oh,
No.
like I got to step away from this conversation because I don't want to make myself look stupid, or like because I don't know anything about it. I can't relate to it. So hopefully the conversation shifts back around to either music or sports or something else that I'm familiar with. Okay.
Right.
And so now what had happened was, so when I was 24, I guess, I'd gotten married. Okay.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm still married to the same girl. All right. And uh, I'm driving around one day, and I'm a big talk radio show guy. This is around 2000, probably around 2006. Okay. And I'm listening to a radio interview. And I should state, by the way, even though I was married, like she was my second girlfriend, like I was never good with dating or anything like that. All right. But,
Mm.
you know, so I'll just throw that out there as
Okay.
a
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
preface. So I'm driving around and I'm listening to this local radio show, and they had on somebody, and I don't know who it was because I just didn't know the people in that world. But
Hmm. Hmm.
my hunch is, looking back on it now, it was either probably Neil Strauss or Mystery, one of the two,
Okay.
because that was right around the same time that the game came out.
The game came out. Yeah.
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 So, um, but the concepts that they were talking about in this interview, like negs and just DHVs and like all these
Mm.
different concepts.
All the PUA lingo,
Right.
bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was like blowing my mind. I'm like, this is crazy interesting. And
Also, for those out there,
yeah,
PUA stands for pickup artists. So
right.
that way people are like, PU, what is a PU? We're probably gonna get into some language. But I just wanted to break that down for people out there. Continue, Dave.
Yeah. So, so the concepts are just blowing my mind.
Mhm.
But then I'm kind of like, well, whatever. I mean, it's interesting and everything, but I'm married, and so it's not doesn't really
Yeah.
affect me.
He's
in
like,
any
that
type of-
would be nice, but I'm married. Yeah.
You're
So
right. Interesting, but cool. So, about a month goes by. All right. Now, My wife, she, she wanted to talk to me and stuff like that. And so we're sitting down and having a pretty serious conversation. And she comes out to me as being bisexual. All right.
Mm.
And so we're trying to navigate, like, okay, so what does this mean exactly? And you know where my head went. I'm like, let's get some threesomes popping.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But nonetheless, we're trying to figure out what that, okay, so what does this look like?
Right.
And so as we're talking about it, she's like, well, I would like to explore this, and I would like to date, like date women, and just kind of see, what that world's about and all that kind of thing. And so, but what she told me was, she was like, I don't think it's fair though to you. And she's like, you can, you got the veto power here. If you don't want me to do that, that's okay, but she was like, but I also don't think it's fair that I get to go out and date women. And what are you supposed to do? Just sit here,
Right.
like,
Right.
so why don't you go,
Twiddle your
if you want to
thumbs.
date,
Yeah.
go on ahead. Right.
Hmm.
And so in essence, we kind of open the marriage up like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. But then I'm thinking, like, yeah, but also I'm terrible at dating, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And
Right.
so, what do I do? Like anybody else, get in front of the computer, fire up Google, how to flirt with girls.
Yeah.
And so, I'm kind of looking through, perusing the different stuff that comes up, and I stumble upon some of the same like verbiage that I was hearing in that, like, immediately hit me in that interview. And
Hmm.
some of the verbiage like that I was seeing in some of the stuff that I was finding, I was like, okay, this is crazy. So
Yeah.
I find a copy of just like a PDF downloadable version of Neil Strauss had, who wrote the game, right?
Yes.
There was a companion book to that a lot of
Yes.
people don't
Yes.
know about, the rules to the game. Okay.
Yes.
And so I download that. And so I actually read that before actually reading the game. Okay.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, so I was like, in that book, it was kind of like a step by step, every day you got a little mission to go out and do and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, go seemingly for me, like a daily mission turned out to be a week. you know, but once I felt comfortable about, achieving whatever day one was, then I would move on to day two. And when I got to about day 10, which is probably more like 3 or 4 months,
Hmm.
um, I get a phone number from this girl that I had this like huge crush on. Like, she was a stylist at where I used to go get my hair cut. Super hot, and
Yeah.
I've never been that guy. They, would get a girl's phone number or anything like that. So we're talking, and she gives me her phone number, and like, now a phone number's nothing, for me. Like, it, okay,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
better than
But
nothing. But
it's such a big deal. It's such a big deal as somebody who and I'll get into my, I'd love to get in my story because I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
yeah,
Is it's such a big deal in the beginning to just be like, I opened a conversation. I, got a
yep,
kiss, or I got a number, or you don't even have to, doesn't have to be like, hey, we went home and you know what happened after that. It doesn't even have to be that major. It can,
yeah.
the small wins you're in the moment, you're like, bro, this
But you
is
know what?
gains.
Yeah, dude. You know what? Here's the thing. I tell guys in the modern flirting program all the time. We have a Discord, right?
Yeah.
And in Discord, we got a channel for wins, for people to post their successes. And every once in a while, I'll see a guy be like, "Oh, small win here. Something happened, blah, blah, blah." And my response is always like, "Man, there's no such thing as a small win. There's either a win or a L." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's no such thing as a small win. If it's a win to you, it's a win. You don't have
Right.
to like put a category, there's a subcategory of like, okay, small win, medium win, really
Right.
good win,
If you
like,
look at it like the life of a fighter, right? Like every win is a win. There's no
right.
like asterisk. It's like, well, this was a medium-sized win, so they only get like half credit. It's like, no, they got the win, whether it was by decision,
Yeah.
split decision, knockout. Like, bro,
Right.
like that. This is how this happened.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. So I get her phone number, and I'm
Okay.
like, oh, I can't
Mind
believe it.
blown. Mind
Yeah, it was
blown.
like, this is incredible. And so I'm like, I'm all in. I'm in on this, like I'm dedicating the rest of my life to this. So moving forward, like I just kept working at it, kept working at it, kept working at it. In those days, YouTube was way new, so like
Yeah.
now, like, man, you can find a million videos. I mean, I do videos on YouTube, like amongst like 1,000 other coaches, like information is very easy to find in this space.
Right.
In those days, not so
Back
much.
then it wasn't. Back
Not
then
at
it
all, man.
I
There
had
might be like
to
one wayward like Ross Jeffries video floating around or something.
Yeah, I had
And
to go to like Pirate Bay to like download. I'll just admit this now, since download like Mysteries Workshops, which I had hours of videos of.
yeah,
Neil Strauss's workshops, David D'Angelo,
yep.
Tyler Durd, and like again, I can get into this, and I think that you'd be like, bro, what? But okay, continue. I'm so sorry. I had to add.
That's
to
all
that.
the same world that I came
Just
from, man. So I just kept, like learning as much as I could,
Mhm.
from like all these different resources that I could find online, just a lot of ebooks, a lot of like message
Mhm.
boards and things like that, and a lot of banging my head against the wall,
Yeah.
trying to get things figured out,
Yeah.
which is why, by the way, like, yeah, people can learn by themselves. They don't literally need coaching, but man, does it take like carves out so much more time for yourself, because the learning process is just so much faster. Like
Mhm.
I'll have guys in the modern flirting program that'll be like, man, like I've been in this for like 2 weeks, man, and I haven't like got a girl home with me, and it's like two weeks,
Bro,
dude.
yeah. What?
Like what? Yeah, So like it took me like 4 years before I was even halfway decent into this.
Right. Yeah.
So 2 weeks. But anyhow, so I just continued to work at it, work at it, work at it. And one of the interesting things for me was I was always trying to find a community, like a local community to me. I'm in Detroit and big metro area, like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
got to be other guys out here doing this. And I was always trying to find that group, always trying to find just at least one wing,
Yeah.
and couldn't, man, like for 10 years, literally 10 years, I went solo. Whenever I would
Whoa.
go out, I did not have a wingman. I didn't have a wingman for the first 10 years of doing this.
Straight Ronin, bro. Straight
Yeah.
Ronin, just out there.
Yep. And so, I mean, even the Lone Ranger had Tonto. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just me. And I mean, literally, lone is in his name. You know what I'm saying? So, um, but after about 10 years, I happened to stumble upon a community here that was doing kind of like weekly or I'm sorry, like monthly kind of meetups, and then would
Mhm.
go out afterwards and stuff like that. So I find this community and start going to that. And, not to suggest that, look, some people are like, when they step into a new situation like that and they know that they're more advanced than the people that they're around, they're like, oh, I can't, this is stupid,
Right,
because
right.
like I just know more than anybody here. And I could have taken that tact, because I was well experienced, way more than anybody there. But I always try to come into those situations, like check my ego at the door, listen to what
Right.
people have to say, because I don't know it all. Who does?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
maybe I stumble upon something or learn something or whatever. So within about 3 or 4 months, I was pretty much running that. Just I just had way more experience than everybody.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to be that guy. It's like where you're trying to impress everybody with what and all that kind of stuff. So I would kind of just stay quiet quite a bit unless somebody asked me a
Right.
direct question. But it didn't take long before guys started realizing, like, okay, Dale knows what the fuck he's doing and what he's talking about. So
Yeah.
after about 3 or 4 months, I was, the VP. It was the president and myself,
Okay.
and we had about 40 or 50 guys coming out every month. So then we take this in that group, in that collective, we take this trip to Thailand. All right. And so myself and about 6 other guys from that group, we go, and I kind of became the de facto big brother, father of the group, if you will, because I
Okay.
was just older than everybody,
Yeah.
um, and more experienced and knew what I was talking about. And so it was just that whole trip was just guys just rifling off questions and be showing them how to do stuff and like, okay, here's how this works. All right, you see that girl over there? Okay, what you want to do is this, and you know what I mean? All that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And after that, then the word just kind of like spread, and then I was kind of like, yo, I think I could do this, like I think I could coach this for real.
Mhm.
And so I start a company. And after a couple of years of that company, started talking to I don't know if you know or ever even heard of Modern Flirting, but Jared Psych Lawrence runs it.
Okay.
It's him, me. Do you know who Cosmo is?
Yes, from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
show.
That's the homie. Like him and I
What?
coach together. Yeah. Yep.
What?
Yeah.
Cosmo?
Yep.
Yeah, the reason I remember that, just to segue and then bring it back, is the whole reason I found out about pickup artists community was because it was the second season of the Pickup Artists, which was a VH1. Not
Yep.
just what we're saying, folks. It's a PUA is the whole terminology, but there was a show on VH1 at one point in time. For those out there that don't remember, Mystery, who the book The Game is essentially about. Like, he's a main character in that
Super
book,
main
and
character. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And he hosted a show where the first season of the Pickup Artist was filmed here in Austin, and
Mhm.
that's the one that Cosmo. Did he win the first one? Did he win the first
Cosmo
one?
won the first one. I don't know what
Yes.
happened in the second season.
The second one was in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I forget who won that one, but it was only 2 seasons.
Yep.
But that's how I remember Cosmo. And then all of a sudden, like, just he got integrated in the community, and like he started being a coach and doing. So it's incredible to hear. Like, you love to hear people still continuing to do good, I think is what I'm saying. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. Super great guy, man. Awesome dude. So Modern Flirting, like basically Jared was like, we started talking and started collaborating on a couple projects, and eventually it was just like, man, why am I doing this other company over here when Modern Flirting's doing it bigger and better and wants me involved, wants me there, and so it's like it just made a lot of sense for me to go over there. I do want to just throw out a little disclaimer. We don't teach pickup. Okay. I know we've been talking about like pickup and like, yo, Cosmo won the pickup artist. And
Yeah.
we don't teach pickup. What we teach is a lot of social circle stuff, inner game, hence my book,
Mhm.
communication skills, business, um, health, shit, man, all kinds of stuff. Pretty much health, wealth, and relationships all wrapped up,
Okay.
So, I mean, like on our boot camps, yes. Do we have guys go approach girls? Yes, we do. But it's not like basically our whole mantra is pretty much like give value. Like, it's not a thing to go talk to this girl to get something for you. I want this girl to suck my dick or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's not a thing of trying to get something from the girl and using underhanded tactics to do it. No,
Yeah.
this is what we're about. We're about like, okay, go talk to her, make her day better. Show
Mhm.
like have a really good conversation with her. Make her just have let her feel good about everything. You her life. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so that's really what we're about.
And I think that's such a great distinction to make, because I mean there are, a lot of I don't see it quite as often anymore. Like, I see that the community, the dating relationship community, has evolved a lot, but there are still, you'll still find some pickup artist style coaches. It's a little few and far between. But that doesn't so I love the distinction of like, this is what we represent as
Mhm.
a company at Modern Flirting. This is what we want to do.
Yep.
But that's not to say that people, and it's just like Hitch, right? The movie Hitch, where Hitch is like, hey man, I'm trying to connect people, and
Yep.
still people can use those resources, much like anything else,
Yeah.
for like nefarious purposes. And that's not on y'all, because that's not what y'all
Right.
are. That's not something, an ethic that you guys are trying to push, or a narrative you're trying to push.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at it is like this. a gun, right? Like,
Yeah.
I could use a gun to go rob the liquor store, right?
Right.
Like, or with that same gun, if somebody's trying to break into my house, I can protect my family.
Yeah.
The gun is just a gun, right? It's the intent of the individual that has the gun that makes the gun good or bad, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Yeah, can you take those tactics and be on some dark triad stuff and like
Dark
go out and
triad.
just try
That's
to use
lovely.
it for nefarious means and all that?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do that? Yeah,
Of
sure, you
course.
could do
Yeah.
that. Or could you use those same tools and forge really long lasting um relationships in your life that are fulfilling, that are purposeful, that are rewarding. Like you,
Yeah.
the choice is yours. You can do what you want with it. But I would argue, the latter is better than the former.
Facts. Right. I love that. I want to get into though the focus of inner game,
Mhm.
right? Because I hear inner game and obviously I think people have different terminology. It's inner game, it's shadow work, it's this and that.
Yeah.
I and I'll give you my experience with this is because when I got into pickup stuff, this was 2008, I believe. So
Yeah.
I discovered the pickup art. I had a friend of mine mention the pickup artist.
Mhm.
And I went again, Pirate Bay. Shout outs to Pirate Bay. If people don't know, then you're probably Gen
I
Zer.
know it. I know it well, man. I know everything.
But yeah, and so they can't come for me now. I hopefully there's a statute of limitations, but I downloaded so much content from it and watched so many videos, read
Yeah.
so many books, printed out stuff. I had binders full of just book and material and action steps, right? Like workbooks and stuff like
Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
So first of all, shout out to whoever put it on there. Like y'all are amazing. I don't know what they're doing or whoever, but like shout out to y'all. I was able to I was 20 at the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was 20. And I was able to even connect with the we had the Texas PUA Lounge. That was like a website. And I remember going on that website, making a little handle, and
Mhm.
then they're like, we have monthly meetups. So I think the first time I went to a monthly meetup was November of 2008.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, they met up at like a restaurant bar downtown, and then everybody was super cool. And sort of the leader person talked, and everybody sort of gave their intro, like I'm so and so and I'm so and so, and then they were going to go out to bars. I was 20, so I couldn't go into any bars, so I was like, I'm going to a party, but like it's nice to meet all y'all fellas.
Yeah.
And so I think I went for a few months just to sort of get a vibe for that scene. Biggest things I did learn were um sort of creating an air of confidence by learning little games and tactics and conversational pieces, and start to dissect what really happens and start to understand body language. In
Yeah.
If you're not confident, like try to learn body language, and this is where you should be standing, and like you should be turning, and DHV, right?
Mhm.
Demonstrating higher value and Kino escalation.
Yeah.
Bro, I know all these terms. But they're like imprinted in my head. But one of the things looking back, like, so that was great, but I never got to where I wanted to be. So I just kind of kept the things that worked and sort of
Mhm.
continued along my journey. Um, Looking back, though, one of the things that was not focused on back then, it always felt like a lot of um, superficial tactics, like, if you
Yeah.
will, right? Like, hey, we're going to teach you this gambit or this routine, and then you go out there, right? Like, and put it in and like try to finagle your way and fumble your way to, and then you'll just do you'll cycle through the same routines and what have you. But in none of it did I actually fix the problem, which
Right.
it was my own inner wounds, my
Yeah.
own inner hurt, that even allowed me to get to the point of like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm shy around women, but I'm totally an extrovert, but I'm shy around women. Like this doesn't make sense,
Right.
right? in the time, but looking back after, doing inner work and going through therapy and doing workbooks, reading books, watching videos, like I look back and I'm like, they should have been teaching that shit, since the get-go. Like where was that? So I have an appreciation
Yeah.
of hearing about inner game or somebody
Yep.
focusing on inner game.
You felt like it was inauthentic because like, albeit, okay, cool, I have a few things that I could say and kind of, keep a girl interested and like, okay, this guy's fun to talk to, but it really didn't fix the bigger issue. It was just kind of more or less putting a band-aid on a gunshot wound.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Yes.
Yeah, I get you. And that's most guys' experience. If I knew what to say, everything would be fine. Yeah, okay.
Right. No, I knew what to say and nothing was fine.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like so I have an appreciation for coaches who go past that superficial, go past just, oh, here's some lines, or like, here's what to look out for. Just like those are good things. But the biggest thing that I've learned, not just as hosting the show and speaking with dating therapists, relationship therapists, dating coaches, relationship coaches, just normal people too that I've had on,
Yeah.
is what's in here, how you see yourself, no matter what the situation is. I don't need to know a thing about a person, because if I go out and I'm in public and like I have a good self-esteem, or I see myself in a good light, or I'm healed from childhood trauma, and like I'm like, no, people don't view me this way. This is the only way I'm viewing me, but I view myself better, and I feel better about myself. And I also have no tie to however an interaction goes. Everything just flows so
Right.
much better, whether I'm meeting a new homie at a bar, or like being like, hey, like, I think this person's attractive, let me just start this conversation up. Or they started one with me and I'm not like, what do you mean the weather is nice? What is that? What is my fly open? I don't know what to do. Like, I'm not freezing. Right. Yeah. Are you negging me? I don't understand what is happening. So talk to me about what the mindset was going into exploring something like inner game, though, Dale.
Okay, so here's the deal, man. Like, I, I'll say this up front. Like, I do think it's good to have a structure, and especially for guys that are new. I mean, you can kind of think of as training wheels, like some things to conversational topics and things like that. Okay, just to kind of get the ball rolling and just to get a little more socially comfortable and things like that. But that being said, that's not going to fix the bigger issues in terms of social anxiety or low self-confidence or things like that. Okay. Because if that was the case, then, and like I'll lay out this example. All right. Imagine if your say somebody broke into your family's home, okay, and they're holding your family hostage, right? And the guy that's holding your family hostage, they got to talk to you, because you're the guy that can get them on, pay them the money, get them out of this situation. And you're talking to, we'll just say a detective from the police department. It's a hostage negotiator. Now, this guy will not talk to that hostage negotiator. He's only going to talk to you. So the hostage negotiator says to you, Blake, all right, man. So I know it's a high pressure situation, but just say this, and this, and your family will be fine. So there's nothing to worry about. Don't even be nervous. Don't even be anxious. Just go on ahead, man. Go talk to him and tell him what I just told you. Dude, you're gonna be terrified. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you know what to say. He's a hostage negotiator. Like, he's been through this.
Right.
And he told you exactly. Here's the script, man. Go out there and say it to the guy that's holding your family hostage. Man, you're still gonna be like, oh man.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the way that I kind of think about it. Guys get into the dating world space, right? I want to improve with dating. I want to attract the type of women into my life where I have selection, where it's not dictated to me because I don't have any options and whatever, right? And those are all fair. It's like, okay, cool. But I know from my own personal history and the thousands of guys that I've worked with, they get into it because they want to get better with women. But what they
Right.
quickly realize is they need to get better with themselves. And the women thing just shines a big old spotlight. If you want to know what your social flaws are, yeah, go to the club this weekend and go talk to about 50 girls. You'll find out.
Mhm.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
facts.
You'll know exactly what your problem is. You know what I mean? So guys get into this, for the women, but they ultimately stay because it's about the lifestyle in themselves is
Mhm.
where they need to really improve internally,
Yeah.
not just here's a script, man, or here's a fun little gambit to go run,
Right,
hey,
right.
here's a magic trick, like
Yeah.
these are cool, but
But also too,
ultimately,
I don't want to be carrying cards with me. Like I'm not a magician.
all right,
I'm not a
check this out.
magician. Leave me
Funny,
alone.
funny story.
Okay.
So I this was years and years and years ago. So I was kind of like in my mystery phase, right? I'm
Mm.
experimenting, going out with boas on, and you know what I mean? Like I was,
I painted my nails as
oh,
a
dude, I put
personal note.
mascara on. Like I tried it all. Man. I feel like a jackass. But I go out with this girl, right? And I had
Uh-huh.
just learned this dope new card trick. Okay. And so I brought a deck of cards with me. Okay. And
Okay.
so I'm out on this first date with this girl, and we're talking. And I was like, oh, I got to show you something. Check this out. So I pull out this deck of cards, and she goes like this. Oh my God, he brought props to a first date.
What,
It's like wah,
bro?
wah, wah.
Bro, instant deflation. I was like, oh no.
To her credit, she rolled with it. She had fun, and we ended up like dating for a little
Nice.
while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, it did work out. But in that moment, I was just like, I feel stupid right
Right.
now.
That's it's hilarious. It reminds me of I used to for a long while. This was definitely during when the pandemic was at its peak, right? I started listening to a lot more other, I mean, like many people, other podcasts that were
Yep.
in the space of like dating and relationships. And I found one at the time and it was called Second Date Update. You ever heard of this?
Mm-mm.
Second Date Update is people will like some syndicated radio show, like whatever pop radio show 96.7 or whatever
Yep.
whatever the kids call it nowadays. And
I think they call it Spotify.
Spotify for sure. But
But go ahead, I get
whatever
you.
pop station, iHeartRadio, Kiss FM, or
Yeah.
whatever station that is in your local city, they do
Right.
this thing where people will email in and say, hey, I had this date and I had this experience, and I'm just wondering what happened with this other person. Like, I want a second date update.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so they'll email inconspicuously, they'll email and be like, hey, is this Julie? And they're like, yeah, well, Julie, you went out with Bill. And he informed us. And the thing is, Bill's on the line, but she doesn't know it. And
Oh,
and they're
setup.
like, he emailed us and he just wanted to follow up on the date. She's like, did he tell you everything? And that's always the case.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean everything? And she's like, well, he was, this, or he came in like a regular shirt, and like we went to a fancy dinner and he was just like, do you want to come back after? Or like,
Mhm.
it's just something is weird. But there was
Yeah.
one where a guy brought a cactus on a date, like a baby cactus. And the girl was just like, they're like, you don't like baby cactuses? She's like, I mean, it's a prop on a date to what you're saying.
Yeah.
But also too, I had just been on a date with another guy 2 weeks before, and he brought a baby cactus. So she's like, is this like is this like a dating coach teaching them like to bring, are they reading something online? All these
Yeah.
guys reading something online that's telling them to bring a baby cactus on a date. And so it took me back to that, because it's like reliance on props because of lack of confidence in yourself and in your
Yeah.
own ability to be like, I don't really need anything
Yeah.
to just have a good time. But at the time, it it kind of seems like an opening to be like, okay, well, I can dive deeper into this whole other thing without having to dive deeper or do more work on this other side of me. So let me be reliant on this.
Yeah.
That's what that reminds me of.
Yeah, no doubt.
When was it though, the trigger moment where you were like, it's not about these outside props and routines and gambits. I need to dig a little bit deeper. What was that moment like?
Well, I think initially, when I started realizing that, like, okay, like I studied all this stuff backwards and forwards, and
Mhm.
like I still didn't feel what I would consider to be socially comfortable, you know.
Okay.
And what I realized was, you know, it's not even so much about like picking up girls or anything like that. I just wanted to feel socially comfortable in places that I felt like an outsider, you know?
Mm.
Like um I wanted to feel comfortable going to a club, Like I was never a club guy,
Yeah.
And when I started, like it took me I think about 4 or 5 times of going before I actually even like really went in. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
I just wanted to feel comfortable in any setting, And so, in gambits and scripts and canned lines and all that kind of stuff. Okay, cool, fine, but that's not solving the issue, you know.
Yes.
And so what I realized is that like, okay, this ain't about um this is about me at the core, Like this isn't about what I'm doing. This is about who I am. And if I'm going to get a real handle on this, I need to get a handle on who I am as an individual, you
Mm.
know, and really get dialed in on that. And to me, that's kind of the foundation of everything else in when we're talking about inner game,
Yeah.
you have to know who you are.
Yeah.
If you don't know who you are at the core, like like everybody kind of has a vague sense of who they are, like they
Yeah.
but it's not dialed in for most people, you
It's so
know?
funny. I had an episode of a podcast, probably little less than a year, and I had a friend of mine come on, and this was the first time uh we really talked about it. And he was just a friend of mine. It wasn't a dating coach or anything like that.
Mhm.
And I would do that often because I think everybody has a story and everybody has an experience and everybody has their own observations. And
Yeah.
if I could interview everybody in the world, I think I would love to do that just to hear their story, whether you're an entertainer or not,
Yeah.
because there's so many viewpoints and observations that people have that I've found through conversations really expand my mind.
Yeah.
And I love, like, that's something that I've found a passion for. But one of the things he said, and it was the title of the episode, is "Know Thyself."
Mhm.
And I was really like, huh, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple, but yeah, like you say in your book, like it's like some of these things are simple, and you don't mean to be a repeating box of like just vague cliches, and you're not, but it's simple is sometimes like it's the best answer, it's the easiest answer, but it's like
Yeah, it's
it's the
Occam's
answer
razor,
that
right?
the what?
Occam's razor?
Yeah, there you mentioned that in the book. I read that chapter.
Yeah.
Uh, it's exactly that. Like it's sometimes the answer that fits the most for that particular issue problem is the easiest.
Yeah.
Um, what did you do? What did you do when you realized that was sort of the glaring hole that was staring at you?
Well, that's kind of when I started getting into more of the I would say more of the psychology aspect of
Yes.
like look, inside of the dating world space, right? I mean, you have some kind of go-to type of authors, Robert Greene being one, okay?
Yeah.
And
Art of War, the art of seduction, what have
Art of
you.
Seduction, the 33
50,
Strategies of War.
50,
I
50
mean,
laws of
Advanced Read.
power. Yeah.
He's one of my favorite authors.
So great. And just to add a caveat to that, if people want to get a better sense of Robert Greene, he did an interview on a podcast I listened to called Diary of a CEO. It's like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah,
And just hearing him talk, it's incredible, like the way that his mind
yeah,
works. And he also too didn't become, he released the book, I think he said when he was like 36 or 37 in like 96, 97, 98, something like that.
yeah,
And it didn't explode until like 8 years later. And then he's like, even now, I sell more copies of it than I've ever sold because so many people, they found it. Then people in the entertainment world started talking about it. Rappers started talking about it. All of a
He's got a
sudden,
book
like,
with 50 Cent.
yeah. Yeah,
You
he was
know?
talking about it. Like, he was like, I hung out with 50 Cent, and like, it was talking about the making of that book. So continue that. I just wanted to add that caveat to sort of
super dope
expand it.
dude, man. Again, if top 3 of favorite authors of mine, if not
Nice.
number 1.
Nice.
And so when I started kind of like getting into that stuff, David Deida, Way of the Superior Man, this guy right here, I don't know if you've ever read this before, but No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. It's a banger. He came on my podcast, I don't know, a couple months ago.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, so when I started getting into more of the psychology aspect of it and really trying to get a handle on what like confidence actually is, the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by his name jumped right out of my head, but that's a really good book too. But all that combined was just me trying to figure out, like, okay, I'm doing this stuff, like, I'm getting pretty good at it, but like, why do I still feel like, almost kind of like imposter syndrome, where I don't feel like that I'm worthy of the type of success that I'm having with this. Why?
Right.
I mean, I'm having the success, so shouldn't I just feel kind of, I don't want to say entitled, but like not surprised, that I'm successful when I keep being successful at it?
Yeah.
But I don't. Why? So I wanted to get to the crux of those types of things, where I like kind of, trying to figure out what that negative self-talk dialogue voice in your head, like how to deal with that, man. Like what's the right way of going about that? Should you be resistant to it and act like it doesn't exist? Should you play into it? Should you try to eradicate it somehow? Is it actually there for your benefit? Like all those types of questions. And so I started going deep, and then working with, as I started getting into coaching and things like that, and working with a lot of guys, what I found very, very consistent issues that guys struggle with. And so that's kind of what spawned the book was, all these conversations that I was having with guys, like, why are they have so many mental hangups and emotional hangups when like they really shouldn't, like, and a lot of times it's because, they their perception of themselves is not the perception that others have, but everybody thinks like they do.
Right.
That's just simply not true,
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, cool. How do we build confidence? How do we build self-esteem? How do we become self-disciplined? How do we start enforcing boundaries in our life? How do we stay out of that nice guy trap? And so those are the things I really, because those 5 things. Where's the camera? Those 5 things are, to me, the pretty much the core of the core pillars, if you will, of inner game. Everything kind of falls under those, seemingly, in my opinion, kind of falls under each one of those canopies.
Yeah, I like that. I think there's a lot to unpack there, and one of the places I want to start is you had mentioned, like, why do people think this way, or why is this? I found for me, my own answer and my own sort of class of thought where I approach a lot of people from is and this is what helped me. It was a book that I had a friend of mine, it was a co-host at the time, my buddy Ian. He turned me on to a book called Attached. Have you read this book?
No.
It describes attachment theory, and you don't need the book to have ever heard of attachment theory. Dale, have you ever heard of attachment theory, though?
Sounds vaguely familiar, but I wouldn't be able to break it down.
Yeah, no, a lot of people are they feel like they've heard it, and so I'll break it down. And I love doing this because this helps me when I meet people. I dig into it because I'm like, what do you do? And it's like, well, I do this day job, but like also I host a podcast. I host two different podcasts, dating,
Yeah.
relationship. Like, what? And I'm like, they're like, well, what do you talk about? And I'm like, it used to be me talking about dates and like how dating was going, and then it talked to me, then it turned into talking to other friends about their
Yeah.
experiences with dates and relationships. And then I'm like, in the last 2 years, and it's going to go on 3 years in September, since
Nice.
I've gone to therapy. That's
Mhm.
when I started therapy, was September of 2020.
Okay.
It has turned into a self growth journey from taking yourself, finding the pieces of finding the wounds, those inner wounds, and healing those, and then saying, because I'm healing those things, these things no longer bother me, or this is how I handle them in a more healthy way. Which, if you ever look at people's dating bios or relationship bios, nowhere in there have I seen, and all the times that I've swiped this way and that way,
Mhm.
somebody saying, I want a healthy relationship. It's always, I want a good one, or, communication and that. But it's like, what we're really wanting, what you should really be striving for, is not good sex, is a healthy relationship. That's what we should all be striving for. And I think
Yeah,
that's
I
really
agree.
what we all want. And at the core of it, when the thing that really fixed me was attachment theory. So attachment theory, it is the theory that our attachment styles, a style of how we attach ourselves to people that love us and care for us,
Mhm.
is developed when between the ages of 2 and 6, of how we were loved or not loved.
Yeah.
There are 3 main attachment styles. There's like a fourth.
Mhm.
We don't need to get convoluted, but to keep it just sort of high picture, is there's 3 different attachment styles. 2 of them are insecure and one of them is secure. So we'll go with secure real quick.
Okay.
The secure kid into an adult, he's loved enough, hugged enough, told that they're good enough, supported, and they maintain healthy boundaries as they get older, healthy
Mhm.
friendships, and they know when to voice their opinion, when to not. They know how to give people space without feeling like, well, maybe they don't like me. They're like, I don't care if they like me or don't like me. I feel the way I feel about them, and
Yeah.
I'm here to have a conversation. They handle things more in a more healthy manner. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
going to turn down my AC. It's a little brisk in here, and I'm like, I'm trying to make a point here with Dale. The other 2 are, again, insecure. So one of them is anxious, and the
Mhm.
other one is avoidant. So anxious attachment style is created through abandonment, right?
Yeah.
One or more parent was not there to love on the child, and when they were around, they wanted to cling to that. So these become the people who are clingy in
Yeah.
relationships,
Yeah.
because they don't know the next time that they're going to get that love. They feel like, oh, it only comes around, so I got to really hang on to it. And
Yeah.
they're that kid who was sitting by the door waiting for mom or dad to come and get them, and maybe they would not, or maybe they would come an hour late or 2 hours late.
Yeah.
And so they have this anxiety, right? And they never self-soothe that anxiety.
Yeah.
The other side of the coin is avoidant, and avoidant people were neglected in some way: emotional, physical, mental. I always say this: they were either not hugged enough physically or not hugged enough emotionally, right?
Mhm.
So these are usually the people, you ask them about their parents, they're like, I mean, they put a roof over my head, was always fed, and it's just like, but did they hug you enough? Did they give you encouraging, words of affirmation?
Yeah.
And usually one of those 2 things doesn't happen, and so they formulate in their mind, they live on an island,
Mhm.
and their self-soothing is to cut themselves off, because they have become reliant on their own,
Yeah.
and they feel like they don't need people to encroach on that island or give them support, because they've already learned how to support themselves.
Gotcha.
So, and these are the kids, right? Like, it's always the kid who needs to try to be more performative to get that love. It's the
Mhm.
kid who, Dad, I hit a home run. He's like, but did you hit 4? Like, it's never, you're neglected. You're
I only
neglected
went to
from
bat 3 times, man.
not good enough, bro. Not good enough. Right. And so they will strive, and they're usually the overperformative
Yeah.
people. When I broke that down, I found myself falling into as soon as I went into therapy, I had read the book, had done a couple worksheets online, a couple videos, and I started off my therapy session with, she's like, okay, so what are we, what are you here today for? And I was just like, well, I have anxious attachment style, and I need to figure out like where it's from. I can sort of sense like it's from my childhood, whatever. And and I went on this 5-minute rant about like all the sort of the uh things that the symptoms of why I thought so. And she's like, okay, well, let's sort of break this down. 12 minutes in, she was just like, oh yeah, you have anxious attachment style. I'm like, no, I know what I have. I've done the research. I'm willing to, let's get vulnerable here because I want to fix this, right?
Mhm.
I go in this continuous cycle of, clinging on to these girls who in the first 2 months, this happened 4 times over the course of like a year and a half, where it's too much for them and then they have to push away. Then I'm like, but wait, where are you pushing away? Come back here. I wanted to stop that. I saw that as a pattern. I wanted to stop that. And going to therapy was a great tool for me. I don't know if I think everybody should talk to someone.
Yeah.
Everybody should have some sort of figure in their life where they're open and vulnerable.
I agree.
I do think therapy can be helpful for everyone. Is it a one size fit all? No, like that's why there's different methods of therapy.
Right.
But I do think it's something that everybody should explore to see if it is for them or not, to heal those parts of yourself. And this isn't, and I've found when I say healing, like people get all woo woo about like, you got to heal the chakra and the energy, bro.
The same thing.
Nah, man. Like I'm talking about trauma. We're healing actual trauma, whether it's tangible or not. It's in your brain. You have these pockets and these holes in your brain, your emotional brain, that need to be healed. And when they're not, when you become older, things will trigger you that have nothing to do with the actual thing. I always say it's never about the sock, right? I have this saying, it's like when you live with a partner and they're like, they didn't put the sock in the damn, laundry basket but it's not about the sock. You're using the sock
is just a trigger, basically.
Boom, to get into the rest of everything else. So what really you need to do is go to the source of where all the minds are. Go to the source of where all the minds are connected to try and defuse that bomb. And it diffuses 20 other things at one point.
With trauma, when I'm dealing with people that have, that have traumatic things that have happened to them and stuff like that. And I am a certified hypnotherapist. So, I am an advocate of therapy, certainly.
Yeah.
But when I'm dealing with somebody that is struggling with some type of trauma, it's not really, in most people's cases, it's not really the event. Like whatever happened to them, whatever, who knows? I mean, the world's a crazy place. Could be anything. But the actual event isn't the actual trauma. It's like you said, like you're talking about attachment. It's the attachment to that trauma that is the actual trauma. The way I like it is like this. If you got a helium balloon, right? And you go to Walmart or whatever, and you're walking around, it says happy birthday on it, right? The balloon is the event. You're hanging on to it. And you're going around living your life hanging on to and making well, I can't walk in there. I got this balloon.
Right. Yeah.
I can't get this far. I got this balloon. And so you're living your life all predicated on, I can't do things because I've got this balloon. But if someone comes along and is like, well, I'm about to help you out, got some scissors, bam, off goes the balloon. Now you can just go around to live your life. You know what I mean? So it's that hanging on. One anecdotal story that I really like that really relates to this very, very well is you ever heard about the 2 monks? You ever heard this one?
I feel like I've heard. Go on. Okay. I'll let you know if I.
All right. So there's 2 monks, right? Buddhist monks, and they just get out of monk school, seminary, whatever it is, and so they're mad young, and they get tasked to go to this Shaolin temple, this master guru monk, run shit. So they get tasked to go work with him, and they're excited. They're like, man, this is great. Like work with him. Wow, we're gonna learn so much. Like this is awesome. So they go and they're there now. The head monk, he tasks them to go deliver this message to a different temple. Okay, and again, can't believe it. Like we're brand new monks, and he's giving us this like top secret mission.
We chosen out here, baby. We chosen.
We're killing it. So off they go, right? And it's going to take them like 3 weeks to get there on foot. So as they're walking, they come up on a river, and in this river is a woman, and this woman's drowning. And she's like, help me, like she's going to be done if somebody doesn't help her.
Yeah.
And one of the monks dives into the river, pulls her out, takes her to the other side, and she's super thankful, like, hey, you can come eat at my place and whatever. They're like, no, we got somewhere we got to be, but, you're welcome. And off they go. Now, the thing is that these monks aren't allowed to touch a woman. Okay. So he kind of broke a rule by diving in and helping her, So the monk that didn't help, he's salty at the one that did, because he's like, you're not supposed to be doing that. And so he's kind of holding a grudge now. And a few days go by or whatever. And the monk says that the one that rescued the woman, what is your deal, man? Like, why are you being so salty? And he's like, well, you know that you're not supposed to touch a woman, but you jumped right in that river and saved her. And he's like, yeah, well, I carried her to the other side of the river. You've been carrying her since it happened. Ooh, and that's to demonstrate that's what people do, man. The event is long and gone. That already happened. We're on to something else now. But a lot of people just carry that baggage with them, that they don't need to really bring with them.
But I agree. But I think it's super simple to say, like, just let it go.
Because that's for sure.
Also not helpful either.
Suggest like buck up. That's not helpful. But what it does demonstrate is that, okay, once you have an understanding that I have been carrying this with me, like this is something that has been a struggle for me for a long time. Right. At least once you have that diagnosed and recognized, now you can start the actual process of letting it go. Of course, It's not as easy as just saying, like, oh, get over it,
Yeah. It's not Frozen. It's not let it go. Let it go. It's not that. It's not that at all.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, and everybody's a little bit different in what that type of work would look like and how much, effort and energy that it's going to take to heal that. But at least you could start the process of it. If you don't know what you don't know. If you don't even realize that you're carrying that with you, well, then you'll always have it on your back because,
right.
That's just the way it is, I guess.
I was talking about this with a friend of mine because I'm currently in the middle of writing a book as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's all about finding love. It's called We All Want Love, and using like what I've learned, especially from podcasts and conversations and books and stuff, to sort of convey the message of like finding healthy relationships. And I was talking to him about it, and I was just like, I've been through the ringer when it comes to like doing pickup stuff and and this and that. And I was like, but if ever anybody were to ask me, and somebody did, so I guess this was before that story. But if ever somebody would have asked me, like, I want to date or I want a relationship and I don't know where to begin, I would always walk them through like the first, like and I told him, I'm like, I would have gone back and told myself this: before you go date, go to therapy or go do something that's healing first. Because when you go through, say, a date that doesn't work, or you're on a dating app, some girl doesn't respond, instead of getting in your head about it, you move on so much quicker. You bridge that gap from like, okay, like you just move on so much faster, because you're not upset that she didn't respond. You're upset of what that means to you in your head. I'm
Right.
not good enough, or
Yeah.
she doesn't like me because of, and then you'd make up some excuse that she doesn't even know about you,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
because of an
Yep.
insecurity that you have in yourself. So
Yeah.
before you take
100%.
that journey, bro, fix some pieces, fix some pieces, at least start to get, whatever percentage points,
Yeah.
15, 20 percentage points on the journey. Be like, hey, I'm on the journey. I'm on the journey of this. I'm healing, but also, I'm ready to like start to dip my toe in the pool. You will be so much more ready for if something does not go your way. And
Mhm.
then when something does go your way, when you get into a relationship, if you get to that point, you'll know so much better about how to handle yourself, your own emotions, and then receiving somebody's emotions and being like, I don't know if you really, I don't think you're not angry. Anger is just, it's just a cover up for being hurt. So what are you actually hurt about? Let's
Right.
talk about this.
Yeah.
Having those deeper conversations, being vulnerable.
I'm a big advocate of finding out the why behind the what.
Yeah.
You know, people focus on the what way too much. Do you know what a Y chain is?
Explain to me.
So basically, a Y chain is uh, okay. For example, I have a headache. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because I stayed out drinking last night too
Why?
long. Why?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted something to do. Why? Because I'm lonely. Bam.
Mm, that's what it is.
Right? So it's getting to the crux of it and then addressing that versus just like, the simple solution would be, well, I'll just take a couple of ibuprofens and I won't have a headache and I'll then drink some water and I'll be good. But that
Right.
doesn't fix the lonely problem. All that does is fix the headache, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting to the crux of stuff and then bam, attacking that.
Right.
It's like knocking over dominoes, like everything else will
Yes.
check off if you get to the core of the real issue.
Yeah. So I love this because treating symptoms is not a cure for the condition.
Right.
Right. Like fixing my issues of not being able to talk with women when it's so, whatever, 15 years ago, whatever, was not, that didn't solve anything for
Yeah.
me. It just put a band-aid on the part where I'm like, oh, I now know some stuff to say. But when things didn't go good, when I believe what they call them, when a set didn't go good,
Mhm.
it still crushed me a little bit inside. And
Yeah.
it's still sort of like, I'm okay, but I'm not really okay. And so it is getting to the source. Like, first of all, find the source. And what that takes is self actualization, self-realization. And I love it. I don't think it was called out directly, the word, but it was a chapter 2 or 3. It was accountability. Like you
Mhm.
talked about essentially accountability in that, like holding yourself to being like, no, this is what this issue is.
Yeah.
And holding yourself accountable is something that people distract themselves from.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to not have to deal with the issue than
Right.
it is to deal with the actual issue. And to the point of where I'm saying, like, I'd start somebody on a journey of like working on the internal before we go out. That takes so much longer to
Mhm.
do, even though it'll be a correct method, it'll be a better method. People
Yeah.
want the instantaneous results. They're like, no, I want to talk to a girl tomorrow or next week, or you deal with this, right?
Oh,
Next
yeah.
month, I want like 18 numbers. And you're like, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. That's
Well,
not how
guess
this
what? I
works.
want 8-minute abs. So how's that working?
You don't have to brag about your six pack, Dale. Listen, calm down. Yeah, but it's that people want instantaneous results when I think that there's a whole better way to approach it, which
Right.
again, I think in a nutshell, to get to the book and to get to what you do is inner game is like, is that where you're going with this? Is that sort of your approach? And this is
Yeah.
being
I
like,
mean, I
we
think
gotta,
you can do I don't think it's necessarily mutually exclusive. I think that you can date because here's the thing. And I'm with you. Like you should be actively, and I don't care where you're at in life, you
Mhm.
should actively be working internally, on that inner game. Okay. Regardless of where you're at. Like there's always something. An example that
Right.
I like to use is this, I think that we could probably all agree that Dwayne The Rock Johnson has arrived. Okay. Like,
he is him.
he's doing good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's doing all right.
Yeah.
I would venture to say, and I don't know this for fact, but I would venture to say if you were to ask him if he's arrived, he would tell you no. That he'd be like, "Oh man, there's so much stuff I'm trying to work on. There's so many things I'm trying to get done. I want to do this and I haven't done it yet. I want to do this and I haven't done it yet." He would likely tell you that he has not arrived. All right. So where I'm going with this is this. None of us have arrived. There's always something to work on. If you've arrived, then it's all downhill from here. I arrived at 20. It's all,
how's that roller coaster going? Yeah.
So, there's always going to be, like they say, there's never a perfect time to have a kid. I don't have kids, but that's what I've heard. You can do all the planning in the world, and the time's never going to be the right time.
Right.
So, I think that to suggest that you should do a lot of internal work before going out and dating, I think that could be problematic because you're never going to get done doing. You're never going to feel like that you've gotten everything figured out. A lot of answers are just going to lead to more questions. So I think as long as you're moving forward, as long as you're making moves and improving and getting more confident and getting, your self-esteem is getting better and, all these things, I think that you're in the right space, because what you're likely to see is this person, is this girl that I'm trying to talk to, is this girl I'm trying to date or whatever, is she making strides in her life internally? And if she's not, because you're putting in so much inner work, that's going to be very apparent to you. And likely you're going to be like, nah, I'm good on that, because that's just a big ball of problems. So I do think that you should start the process of working internally, but I don't think that, putting a timestamp on it to say okay, let me go to therapy for 3 years and then I'll start dating. I think you're missing a lot of opportunities if you do that. The caveat would be, unless you are severely stunted, an extreme case where man, I can't even leave my house because I have so much social anxiety. Okay. I get, all right.
Yeah.
That's fair. Maybe get that handled, first. But for most people, I think it's okay to do both.
Yeah. And so that's what I was saying, getting to a point of okay, I'm 15 or 20% on my journey. And that's hard to put into be I'm at 50. You don't really know. So it's kind of you gotta go in.
Got an app here. I can check this out.
That's a new dating app I'm releasing, Blake's dating app, where you can measure your mental and emotional progress, all for the low price of $9.99 a month. But I hear you. And so, yes, I will agree to that. And hopefully I wasn't making a point of pull yourself out of the dating pool until you're healed. No, because we're constantly healing humans, right? We're constantly going through changes. I do think, though, pulling yourself out of the dating pool for 2 to 3 months is completely okay. And you're using that time, if you're using that time to actually, process trauma, heal some wounds, and be a better version of you than you were when you started. And you'll know when you got there, because you'll be you'll hear a situation and be like, old me would have said this, or old me would have thought that, but I feel different now in this situation. And this is how I would handle this now. I do think that that's completely appropriate to do. And again, it's not sexy. None of self-work is sexy, but it's necessary to establish a healthy relationship with whichever partner it is that you're wanting to do that with. And I know why I was talking. I know why I brought this up, because having that conversation with my friend about how I would handle the
Yeah.
methodology of things, I was like, it reminds me of the book, The Game. Like, so I explained him the whole thing, but it essentially in that book, spoiler, this is not a spoiler alert. Like, everybody go read the book. And if this spoils it for you, it's not gonna, but if it does, go read the book. Like, mystery can pick up any girl in the world and can't hold a relationship. Same thing with Neil. It ends
Right.
up being the same thing with Neil Strauss. It's like that.
Mhm.
And that was the thing looking back, is like all these pickup artists taught you how to do is to talk to a girl, go on a few dates, but none of it
Yep.
taught me relationships.
Yep.
And none of it taught me healthy relationships. It was all based on like, I demonstrate a higher value and I'm kind of this thing, but I'm kind of not. And it even talks about it in the book Attachment, that like for people who especially have anxious attachment style, relying on crutches, it's only a fix for like, and as soon as I heard, I was like, like for like 3 to 4 months. And then after that, the real you starts to seep through, because I felt like at a point in time, I'm not too heavy in the space now, and I
Yeah.
can't say this with your material, but heavy in the pickup days early on, they taught avoidant behavior. Well, don't text a girl for this time around. But if that's not
Yeah.
me, if that's not authentic to me, or if it's like being like push pull and be like, oh, I don't want you, but like, okay, yeah, whatever. It that's not me. That's not authentically me. That's a band-aid that then if you leave a band-aid too long on your hand or your finger, like it just sort of comes off and it's all nasty and dirty and everything. And still, the cut still might be there, right? You talk about
Right.
putting a band-aid on a gunshot wound. It's essentially what you're doing. And then when somebody sees a gunshot wound, you're like, oh, it's all pussy and nasty because you didn't deal with it properly.
Right.
Right. And so that was the point I was making, was like, that's not taught. I wasn't taught a lot in the early days in that circle. So
Yeah.
to see something like this, I think something like Inner Game could have longer lasting effects, right,
Oh,
Dale?
no doubt. Because I mean, going and talking to a girl or something like that, that's very momentary, right?
Mhm.
Like that's a one-off experience throughout the course of your day.
Right.
But what's going on with you internally, you're taking that everywhere. Like the old
Yeah.
adage, wherever you go, there you are.
There you are.
You know?
Yeah.
So like I think that's fundamentally way more important than just being able to like even if you get really good with pickup, like okay, cool, but is that really making you happy? Is that really making you fulfilled? Do you really feel like that you're on your purpose? Do like these are things that are not only I believe fundamental, or at least should be fundamental to life and your the human experience, but guess what? It also makes you more attractive too.
Mhm.
So where's the downside?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Dale, I love everything that we've talked
Yeah, me
about.
too,
And
man.
I'd
Great,
love to
great
have you on.
conversation.
Love to have you on again. Let people know where they can find you, reach out to you, everything about the book, take over the show for a bit,
Yeah.
do what you
Okay.
do, man.
So my address, no.
I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I'm writing it down right in a minute.
No, so basically anybody that wants to reach out to me, what I'm going to do is, for any of your viewers, listeners, anybody that wants to reach out, I'll give you the first chapter of my book, Inner Game, for free. You can have it. And if look, here's the thing, man, I am not a big advocate of like arm twisting type of salesy stuff. You know what I mean? I like
Mhm.
people getting the information, letting them decide for themselves if it's something that they want to do.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. Look, read the first chapter of the book. Okay. And at that point, if you're like, this speaks to me and I really like what this guy is saying, okay, then all you have to do is you can reach out to me, or you can Google Dale Valor, Inner Game book. You can do all that stuff if you want.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I would prefer if you just reached out to me on Instagram. It's at Dale Valor Modern Flirting. Um, on Facebook, like there's I got a Inner Game Modern Flirting Inner Game Facebook group. It's got 4,000 guys in it. Like come
Nice.
be a part of the community. I'm super easy to find. If you Google Dale Valor, you find a million ways to reach me. So yeah, no, that, but look, I'm telling you, anybody who gets that book, do not get it. Do not get it if you don't plan on doing the exercise. Man, nothing grinds my gears more than
Go
people
on.
read a book and don't do the exercises.
Mhm.
At that point, man, you're just reading it for entertainment value, which is
Yeah.
fine, but there's probably more entertaining books than mine. You know,
Right.
so if you're going to just read a book for entertainment's sake, okay, go find you one. There's a whole library full of them. But
Yeah.
if you really want to do something that's fundamentally changing, if you really want to level up in self-confidence, self-esteem, every area of life, you know, health, wealth, and relationships, and have a healthier relationship with you, so the relationships around you are healthier,
Mhm.
just let me know, man.
Do it.
And I'll send you the first chapter.
In the words of his Instagram stories, he's got you. He's got
That's
you.
right.
Your inner game wing. I be watching your stories, bro.
I appreciate that, man.
You know,
I appreciate that.
For sure, man. Everybody go follow Dale Valor. Go follow his community. And yeah, reach out to him. He'll send you a chapter of the book. And if you just want to dive into it, it's available on Amazon.
Yep.
Yeah. So Dale, thank you again so much for
Thank
coming
you,
on.
man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Everybody, y'all can follow me, Money Blakeweather, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, or y'all can follow the podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere podcasts are. That's where the show is. I want to thank y'all for tuning in, and stay tuned probably for part 2 that I'll do with Dale and anything else that we have releasing. So everybody, y'all have a great day, whether you're listening to this morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is. I do appreciate you. And until the next time, we will see you. Peace.